Yes, in 1786 Pinkerton published a selection of ancient Scottish poems, never before in print, with notes and a glossary being chiefly taken from a manuscript of Sir Richard Maitland of Lethington in the Pepsian Library at Cambridge, in which work in a list of all Scottish poets, with brief remarks. He coolly confesses the forgery of several pieces. He's obviously a very educated man. In 1789 he edited a collection of ancient Latin lives of the Scottish saints, only 100 copies of which were printed. Yeah, I think actually Pinkerton should be actually one of the most famous people we learn about when we go to school, rather than learning about people like Captain Cook. So Captain Cook was just a commoner. He was actually just a ship's captain, and that was it. He never was a man of any educated greatness. In 1806 he visited the French capital, and on his return published his observations under the title of Recollections of Paris, 2 volumes. He was then employed in superintending a general collection of voyages and travels extending to 17 volumes. Wow. A new modern atlas, in parts of the former of which was commenced in 1808, and the latter in 1809. In 1811 and in 1814 he republished 2 volumes. 8 volumes, his inquiry into the history of Scotland. This has to be one of the greatest historians that has ever lived. His inquiry into the history of Scotland, along with his dissertation on the Scythians or Goths. He died in Paris, March the 10th, 1826. His appearance was that of a very little and very thin old man, with a small, sharp, yellow face, thickly pitted by the smallpox, and wearing a pair of green spectacles. He was an eccentric, but highly industrious literary workman, and his talents, though in some instances ill-directed, were commensurate with undertakings of no ordinary rank in literature. Wow. Yeah, we know nothing about this man in New Zealand. So if there's a map in his atlas which depicts New Zealand prior to the eruption of Lake Taupo 25,000 years ago, then you must believe that that map is authentic, because this man is one of the greatest historians, as far as I can see, to ever walk the face of this earth. And I can't wait to read more of his works, especially on the history of Scotland, because my ancestors actually come from Scotland, so I would expect to be able to read this work and learn things about Scotland which are not known today by the great majority of people, including Scottish people. They will be like New Zealand people, knowing very little of their own history. So I hope you enjoyed all that, and I think that just about sums up how there comes to be a 25,000-year-old map of pre-Taupo eruption New Zealand. I think I have done my job in exposing this for what it is. And if you want to carry on believing in the 1,000-year-old history which has been handed out to the little children today like lollies at a party, well, be my guest, it's up to you, but the true greatness of understanding what this country is obviously to believe that it has a very long, long past, reaching way, way back into the ages of history so deep that we cannot fathom it. We cannot fathom how there can be a map of pre-eruption New Zealand. A time when all of the west coast harbours did not exist, when the river Waikato flowed straight from the mountains in the middle of the country and entered the sea at the Firth of Thames. And it's an amazing thing that somehow somebody in the past knows that history. So whoever that person is must be a man of very, very great understanding. So there was somebody here who had that kind of knowledge. And I want you to let that sink into your minds, sink deeply into your minds, so that it actually changes your subconscious thinking. It does take quite a while for these new truths to sink into the subconscious. It will change your view of New Zealand entirely as a nation and a country, and it will change your view of the past. It will change your view of yourself as Maori as well, because this is all interconnected with the Maori race somehow. There's obviously a lot more to it than what we are presently being told. And this is something that can really open up the past and shed new light on a lot of things. The past is obviously something we know very little about, especially the ancient past.